It's always lekker. There's a nice South African word for you to get my South African buddies on the show. It's Garth Milne. He's been on with us before, but he's back. And if you're listening on audio, do check this out on YouTube because we've got this little thing to play with, the Success Cube. Anyhow, that's for shortly. Garth, how are you, man? Welcome to the show.
I'm very well, thank you, Mark. Thank you for having me.
Oh, nice to see you. I appreciate you reaching out to me. Backstory, folks. Last week at the 23 PGA Championship, Garth texts me, he goes, "Hey, let's connect. I got something to show you." Well, what he showed me was the Success Cube, which I love, which we're going to talk about. But first, please tell the audience from around the world a little bit about you.
Okay, so my name is Garth Milne. I'm a golf performance coach. I started in the strength and conditioning space, and really that's really where I do sort of the meat of my work is in the gym and on the strength and conditioning side with golfers of all ages. I work with golfers as young as 4 or 5 years old, and we're doing basic long-term athletic development programming right through to 18 years old, and then elite level golfers through to tour pros. And I'm based out at Frankfurt down in South Africa, in George. Wonderful place. The academy there is beautiful. I have to pinch myself every day when I stand on that driving range and take a look at the vista around me. And we work with the membership there, which is right up to the age of 80. So this is the one thing that I found, and why this Success Cube really hit home with me was I've used it with golfers of all ages, right from my littlies right through to my oldies, and I've had success with them all.
Well, with your company alongside Doug Wood, who's been on the show as well, both two great minds from South Africa in terms of athletic and golf development. You guys, I've enjoyed you because you might be strength and conditioning, but you always take a really kind of cerebral, complete holistic approach to development. And when you showed me this, I giggled at you. I'm like, you're becoming less of a strength and conditioning guy and more of a mental, emotional coach.
Yeah.
Tell us about that transformation.
No, it's true. So, obviously my wife says I use my second degree more than my major. So my psychology was my second major through university. And it is true. I think that's really where, the nuts and bolts and where we can really make a big difference is in the mind and in the mental game. It famously said that golf is a game of 6 inches, the distance between your ears, right? And that is so true. But, obviously the technical and the physical, those things, they underpin the ability for you to go out there and perform mentally. If you're not technically sound or you're not physically strong, mental fortitude is not going to be enough. So, but I found that the Success Cube in and of itself, kind of, you can tailor make it to any area of golf, whether it's technical or physical or mental. And really, the thing is that those are the 3 levels, as you've just shown there. When you look at any recipe for success, when we really break it down to its nuts and bolts, the 3 levels are, do I have the right skills? Have I engaged in enough in my work rates? And most importantly, do I have the right attitude? And if you've got those 3 things in place, then, the chances of success are really high.
Okay, so for the audio listeners, again, go to YouTube, search Mark Immelman, you can see this. The Success Cube is this, and Garth was laughing at me because this is his one that he showed me at the PGA Championship. He had one with him, and yours truly might have coerced him into
handing it over,
parting with it a little bit.
Parting ways.
That's mine now, and it lives on my desk. And it's one of those things. It's basically 6 Lego or Duplo blocks, different colors. We got red and blue and green and a light blue and a yellow and an orange. There's a smiley face in the front. Then on the bottom 2 blocks, it says attitude. The middle 2 blocks, it says work rate. And the final top 2 blocks says skills. And I want to start here, Garth, because you pick it up and I'm always fiddling around with it. I'm kind of got to think my hands and, you know what Lego is like, right? You just start stuff together. So let's start there with the tactile nature of this thing and its purpose as to how we use this.
I think obviously the most important thing is obviously this was developed in conjunction with Lego. It's a build upon their 6 bricks concept that was used primarily with kindergarten or nursery school children, where you're engaging the thalamus of the brain, and it's because you're using a manipulative. As soon as you start using your hands, you really are engaging the deep centers, the nerve centers of the brain. We know that almost a third of the motor cortex is dedicated to the hands, and using your hands is a great way to learn. It's a great way to engage the mind, get you really actively involved in the task at hand. And we look at the science of this from the background of it. There's a caricature. It's called Homunculus Man, and it's basically a caricature image of what the human body would look like if we made the size proportionate to the nerve concentration. And this image is of a man who's probably yay high, quite short, but he's got a very big head, very big eyes, nose, mouth, and tongue, and obviously really big hands, because those are my primary senses, aren't they? And big ears, exactly right. So and we know that those nerve centers go straight into the thalamus, which is really responsible for building out the central nervous system. So using a manipulative where you can engage the hands is massively impactful in that sense, in really opening up someone's mind into the task at hand and really focusing them in on what we're trying to do here. So the case in point here is you look at when you break out the success cube, it immediately, we've all played with Lego at some point in our life, right? Hopefully so. And so we know how it fits and how we build it together.
Still do.
Yeah, me included. The great thing about having boys is that you have an excuse to play Lego. But and the great thing about that is that it obviously makes a noise as well as you click it all together. There's the bright colors and there's the tactile. So you've got those three, auditory, visual, and kinesthetic engagement in the task. And that's why I loved it right from the get-go. Just like you, it really just immediately pricked my ears up, and I was really intrigued by it from the outset.
Okay, well, I'm going to do it now because it was all organized and together with a smiley face as success in the front. Then on either side behind that, it's got skills, work rate, and attitude. I'm going to do like that Rubik's Cube, when you mix it up and now it's a mess.
Perfect.
I've got basically all the parts broken up in my hand, and you can hear that to the audio listeners. Now, we're going to role play a little bit here to demonstrate for teachers watching this and coaches how you can use it with learners, and for learners, how with this you can use it to kind of figure yourself out and maybe even guide your teacher go through some self-discovery. So you be the coach. I'll be the frustrated golfer who's come off the golf course.
Okay. So let's say you're a frustrated golfer. Okay. When there's a lot of us out there, we've all experienced that, even at the top level and at the bottom level of the game. So what we would then say is, let's talk about your round of golf or your practice session, or whatever it might be. So we take a task and we're going to particularly break down the performance within that task. And I think this is one of the key things about using the cube, is it immediately extracts the performance away from the individual. And I think that immediately drops any sort of barriers or sense of attack that a lot of golfers do feel when they're being scrutinized or criticized about their performance. And exactly, 100%. And immediately now we're taking the task away from the individual and from that person. We're putting it on the table in front of us. So what we do is we'll then say, let's say you had a round of golf, Mark, and you said to me, well, Garth, I played okay. I hit the ball great. I didn't miss many fairways. My iron play was all right. My short game was actually not too bad, but I putted poorly. So I'll say to you, fine, let's look at that putting performance. And I would like you to break it down into the 3 levels. We're going to look at your attitude, we're going to look at the work rate, and we're going to look at your skills. So I will say to you from the outset, let's start first and foremost with your attitude, because we're going to build the base. So I'd say to you,
attitude blocks. There we go.
Perfect. So look, we can label those two. There's one yellow and one orange. We can label them in particular aspects of the attitude. If, let's say, we're working together for a while, we might say that we've got 2 elements of putting that from your attitude perspective. So I was positive and I was honest. Okay, right. So we can put those down. But really what we're going to look at is, when you lay those 2 blocks together, if you line them 100%, i.e. they're perfectly flush with all 4 rows lined up, that would be, I was 100% with my putting. I was 10 out of 10. But we kind of break it into quarters. So either I'm going to put it down as 100%, or I'm going to shift it. So I get 1 row above or 1 row below. I'm going to make that a little bit asymmetrical. So that would be 75%, correct? And if I go 1 more, then that would be 50%, correct? And I'll go 1 more, then that would be 25%. And if I felt like I was really rubbish, well, then you put them, exactly, that would be 0. And so you've got that grading. So I'll say to you, how would you feel your attitude was around your putting during your performance during a round of golf today?
Well, coach, it started out, I made a nice 10-footer on the first. And then I hit a few putts where I kind of left them short. And then I got a bad lip out. Then I started to get a bit aggravated with myself. So I'd say my positivity went out the window, because I started saying I was probably the worst putter in the world. And then kind of all hope was lost. Then I made one long putt at the end of it, but I was like, oh, you know what? That was an accident. I mean, I was just, it just was, it was a freak of nature, really. So yeah, I would say not very positive, not very hopeful. You know, honestly, I might have ruined my routine once or twice. So I don't know, 25% maybe.
Okay, perfect. So we'll put that down on the base and pop it on the table at 25%.
Right.
Okay, all right. So now let's go through work rate. Okay, now work rate, we can, if we're going to talk about particularly your round of golf, let's talk to me about your routine. Like, what was your routine like leading into every putt? You know, do you feel like your reading, your green reading, and that the time that you spent preparing to read the putts was efficient? Was it effective? Did you commit to that? So I'm going to talk about work rate in particular, like what was actually going on in that process of walking up to the green until the time that when you were ready to pull the trigger?
Well, when I started off, it was like hope springs eternal, right? So I was doing exactly what you wanted me to do, and I was thinking positive, and I walked on the green. And remember how you and I had talked about looking at the putt from both sides, because it was crucial to get the profile and the down the line look. So I did that, and then when I started missing putts, then I was sort of not really even. I wasn't looking at two sides. I was just kind of glancing down the line. So, oh goodness, I would sort of say 50%. Because I was in the routine.
Yep.
Sometimes I say I was kind of autopiloting the thing a little bit, if that makes sense.
Okay, perfect. So we'll pop that down. Now you're going to turn, obviously, those blocks, and you're going to put them perpendicular 90 degrees to the other two blocks that are on the ground. So the two that are labeled attitude, you're going to turn that, the top two, the work rate, you're going to put them running, you know, perpendicular to those lines.
Got you. So 50%.
Okay.
All right.
Pop 50% down. All right.
Hold on. You're going to need to help me here a little bit. So I'll go. No, I gave myself 25 on the attitude.
You did. You did. 25%.
This takes some doing to get this thing stuck together.
It does. I mean, what that's the engagement of the thalamus, right? There you go.
So this is what it currently looks like. Hold on. Attitude. I'm getting there. So now for the folks watching, can you see my cube is kind of broken? There's attitude was 50%. And there's work rates. No, attitude was 25 and work rate was 50%.
So you can actually break that attitude apart there. It's actually looking a bit too symmetrical at the bottom. So if you take that attitude and kind of shift them off the center as well. Okay. So you're going to break those two. So pop those down on the table first with 25% showing.
Okay.
And then you're going to turn your work rate, you're going to turn it perpendicular and place that down on top.
Okay, and the work rate was 50. Is that right now?
There we go. That's better. Okay, perfect. Okay, all right. Okay. So now we got that. So now we've set out that, okay, that's what your attitude was. That's what your work rate was like through the round of golf. Let's talk about the skill set. So skills, let's talk about skills. In putting, we talk about your setup, your grip pressure, your alignment, your eye position, your stroke. You know, did you feel like you were starting the ball online? Did you feel like you had good pace? You know, all the stuff that we've been doing and the elements we've been working on in our practice sessions up until now. Do you think like you actually did that? Did you execute well today in that sense?
You know what, I think so, because you know me, I'm kind of I sort of do the right thing all of the time, and I believe that by just drilling and just being completely physical and perfecting the physical of it, I'm going to putt better. So yeah, I would say I nailed the eye line. I was conscious about the ball position.
Perfect.
The rhythm of my stroke was clean. So yeah,
I'm so give yourself
100% there.
Why not? Absolutely. Well done today. So we'll pop that on top.
Okay.
All right.
So I'm trying to make sure I get my thing correct here.
You're going to turn those top two obviously perpendicular to the work rate lines and build it.
So perpendicular. I think I've done something wrong here. Does that look correct?
Yeah. So you'd have yes. Okay. So now, obviously, if you look at the work rates, now the work rate guys look like they're back to turn it 90 degrees. Yeah. See, so the work rate guys are back at 100%. So you're going to have to shift the work rate off the axis so that they're 50-50 and then place your skills on top. There we go.
Yeah, I've got to get this thing. Oh, I see. Okay. I get it.
So you haven't played with Lego for a while there, Mark.
Well, yeah, but I'll tell you what's happening here, right? Is you as the coach, you're just watching me put stuff together.
Exactly.
Oh, we need to do this. So is that correct now?
That's better. There we go. Love that. So you
No,
can see how we started to create.
attitude is together. That should be split.
Yeah. So no, you got to move your attitude as well. So move the attitude out. So that's at 25.
Okay. I'm dropping stuff. Give me a sec. Live fire, folks, with Lego. And the attitude was 25%. Oh, there you go. That looks a bit more like it.
Yeah, there you go. Okay, so now you can see that looks nothing like the original cube that we had, right? It's not.
For the audio listeners, you see the smiley face is non-existent. It's kind of got the top of the thing. Its eyes are mispronounced. Its smile is off to the left-hand side of where the face was. Yeah, it's all a bit messy right now. Attitude's broken up. Work rate, you can see it's broken in the middle there. And the skills, like we said, the skills were there.
Yeah.
So now this thing is, I'm going to put it down on the table, and you as the coach now are going to probably look at me and say, so?
Yeah, 100%. So I look at it and say, so if that represents your putting performance today, what do you think you need to work on, or where do we need to go with this? Now, invariably, I'm going to tee this up for you.
Okay.
Very often when someone comes off the golf course, their emotions are high, right? So to get a true objective viewpoint on this, it's going to be very difficult, right? So, and most people will say, oh, I putted terribly. I couldn't putt. I'm the worst putter in the world. I can't believe it. And immediately now they're throwing the baby out with the bathwater. So by looking at what you've just built there, I'm going to say to you, what do you think you did well today in your putting?
I was good on the skills element of it. I was good about ball position. I was good about my eye line. I was good about the rhythm of the stroke. So, I mean, the mechanics of the putting are there. My work rate, in terms of the stuff that I was supposed to do prior, in terms of routine.
Yes.
And just to digress, work rate could be, you could ask me how I prepared for the tournament as well, right? What
Absolutely.
Okay. But in terms of work rate and the routine, like you were talking about, I was I was 50-50. I started off well. Then through the end, I got into autopilot a little bit. Didn't give it put the attention it deserved. And so, the work rate could tighten up. I could be more disciplined about doing my routine on every putt, no matter the circumstance, no matter the situation.
So what changed that circumstance though?
Well, the crappy attitude. I mean, I gave my attitude 25%.
100%. So that's the great thing about this, is that if you actually look at it, your attitude is what really scuppered your work rate, didn't it? Because you said to me that you started really well with your work rate. You were really diligent and really committed and really process orientated in making sure that you covered all the basics and all the blocks when you were preparing for your putts. But your attitude started to run away with you once you started to not make the putts or what putt the way that you were hoping you would do or expecting to. And then your attitude went down the tubes, and unfortunately, then your work rate suffered, and your putting performance therefore was not at what your potential is.
So yeah, I mean, I came out with a good attitude, and I was all happy when I started. Then stuff started going wrong, and I essentially thought that I sucked, and I was going to golf sucked, and I'm no good at what I was doing, and that was kind of as you say, because the attitude is the bottom two blocks on the cube.
Correct.
That is the cornerstone of everything.
Correct.
Work rate flowed from there. So with a poor attitude, it affected the work rate. And then I didn't really read putts properly. I didn't take my time like I should have assessing the information. But still, I was that guy that sort of does the right thing with regard to my golf swing all the time. So I was like, and if I just make a perfect swing, I'm going to make putts, which is kind of, I've stuck the thing back together now, which is not the truth. Which, think about this, right? You work with elite golfers, you work with beginners.
Mm-hmm.
How we all mistakenly believe that if we swing better, if we are stronger, then that's naturally going to turn into lower golf scores.
True story.
Yeah, okay, you get to go. Turkey was there for the folks listening. Looked at me and goes,
Yeah.
"Yes,
Yeah.
you're right," and
Yes,
retired.
exactly. Yeah, you know, and that's part of the problem is everyone just thinks, oh well, if I put in the hours, I put in the work, you know, it's magically going to appear on the golf course, and it's not as simple as that. You know, we have to have those three layers. We have to be looking at my skills, my work rate, and my attitude. And just like you said, attitude underpins everything. You know, one of the great things about the Success Cube is I really think it really helps people open their minds to change their mindset. You know, some of us have a fixed mindset, some have a growth mindset, and I feel like the Success Cube really helps, you know, shift someone into a real growth mindset state. Because you know, any time we grow or evolve or, you know, change or learn, we start with a belief. So let's say my belief was I'm a bad putter. Okay, I struggle with putting, I'm a bad putter. Then that'll stimulate an action. All right, I'm going to go to the putting green and I'm going to putt. And then I have a realization that's true, I can't putt. So I decide, well, I'm going to actually spend some time out here. I'm going to get a lesson and I'm going to grow and become a better putter. Then slowly but surely my belief will change, right? Because of what I've done. And that's how we then learn. And we get that circle almost self-feeds itself. The belief initiates an action, and then we have a growth. Now, the great thing about the cube is it really facilitates that process. It facilitates that growth mindset in my ability to learn or become better at something. So, you know, so many people do tend to, and we're all guilty of it in some shape or format, where we become very, you know, very fixed or polar in our decision. Like, for example, I can do maths or I can't do maths.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Well, that's not necessarily true. It's almost like a victimized scapegoat when someone says, well, I'm just terrible at maths. But have you ever really tried to do something about it and become better at it? And maybe sometimes it's maybe not your skills or your work rate, it's just your attitude towards maths that's the problem. You know, are you willing to go and sit down and do the math problem? And I know this. I've got one son that loves his maths and absolutely will delve and dive into maths problems. And the other one, well, it couldn't be more polar opposite in that sense, you know. And we're trying to create a way for him to enjoy doing his maths, and we figured out ways to make it fun and enjoyable and engaging for him.
Yeah.
So, you know, and I'd like to tell a story. I did regale this with you when we had over coffee, but you know, the power of the cube, I noticed it when I first got it. I brought it home and I put it on the table. And obviously my sons were intrigued by it. They were like, well, Dad, what's this Lego toy that you bought for us? And I was like, well, it is a toy, but it's actually a tool. And I explained the basics of it to them. And it wasn't long after that both my sons, my oldest and my youngest, went to go play golf together. And my oldest one obviously was now thinking he's playing with the youngsters and he wants to showcase what a good player he is. Anyway, safe to say that the round of golf didn't go according to plan for him. And when it started to unravel, so did he. And to the point at which his younger brother actually called him out and said, hey, listen, your behavior is actually terrible. Like, please, you know, pull yourself together. Anyway, I fetched them from the golf course, and there was some tears and emotion. And you know that first 45 minutes is a very dangerous time to start unpacking, you know, performances and things, because it was very emotional. I just said to him, listen, let's go home. It was a nice sunny day. I said, let's go have a swim. Let's just, you know, decompress, and then we can have a chat. Anyway, we did that, and I went inside to go, you know, dry off and you know, change out my swimming trunks. And when I came downstairs, he had already got changed, and he was sitting there at the dining room table, and he had the cube out, and he was building it of his own accord. He went and fetched it, and he started building it. And he did exactly what we've just done now. He broke it down. And obviously his attitude was diabolical. He gave himself 0, and he built up the cube.
But here's a quick question. So if you gave yourself a 0 in attitude,
yes,
to see how you could still get this block to stick together.
You can, obviously, because obviously the way the work rate guys sit on top, they would sit perpendicular on top on the very edge. Yeah. So anyway, we then sat, and I mean, he was 12 years old at the time, and we sat and had a 45-minute conversation that was honestly one of the most open, soft, engaging, curious conversations we've ever had. And at no point did he ever feel like I was attacking him or him as a person or his self-esteem. It was about his performance in that moment or for that afternoon. And we were able to really have a deep conversation about what he needed to do to get better as a golfer, and obviously then also as a human being in other sports. He started saying, well, I have the same thing in my cricket or in other areas of my life. And it was a wonderful moment and a great connection. And honestly, the cube facilitated that. It initiated it, and it facilitated our conversation right through. At any time, we could point to the cube and go, okay, well, what can we do better? What would this indicate, or what could we change, or anything like that? It was a wonderful moment, and I sat back from that moment and I looked at those 6 Duplo blocks, thinking, wow, that was powerful.
I want to share a story with you. Yesterday afternoon, I met friends up in Atlanta at a very cool venue called In Town Golf. It's basically, zhuzhed up sort of a Top Golf, I guess. It's inside, nice restaurant. It's top flight, good food, nice drinks and stuff. And there's simulator golf courses and practice that you can play. So it's myself and a couple of friends of mine, and my daughter was there. And it was the sort of situation where for her, she's a good player, but now she's with a 52-year-old, a couple late 30-somethings who are all good golfers now. And they grew up under the Immelman brothers, so they had a pretty complete game of heckle about them. And when she lifted up, she had some she was hitting some poor shots to the left, and so they nicknamed her Low Left and made that her name on the screen as well, right? And so you can imagine now what my daughter's feeling like when we've got to line up against these two. And she struggled naturally, and I could see her feeling more and more conspicuous. But then they had the bay next door to us open for the littles, and the littles had gotten bored, and so they had a thing where they were just it was called Hit It Hard. And she got up there, and we were watching her, she didn't know it, with her driver, hitting drives 250 yards down the middle every single time. She's 15. And I looked at the one guy, and I'm like, you're crazy. She stepped one booth over with no one around, and she's flushing it now. Come stand back here, and it's a different animal.
Yeah.
So now I'm going to pitch that to you to say now, is that attitude? Is that work rate? Is it skills? I mean, I'm keen to know, if you had to have the discussion with her, given how good you are in working with elite athletes, what your insights would have been there.
Well, I mean, it's clearly obvious. It's the attitude that changed, wasn't it? Because, she had the skill that was in there, her ability to hit a golf ball, to make a consistent, powerful, efficient golf swing. She obviously has done the work on it, because she was able to do it right there and then. Immediately thereafter, when she extricated herself from the environment that created doubt, feeling conspicuous, those type of things that really negatively impacted her ability to execute a skill that she really has, pretty solid ownership over. It was incredible, like you said, that she could literally step one booth over, and immediately all those attitude related issues just dissipated. She became confident in her ability, and she stepped up. She probably cleared her mind and said to herself, right, I'm going to do this. And the thing is, again, like you said, just hit it hard. Something that you got to throw everything out the window sometimes if you're going to hit it hard. You immediately go into your athletic state, and you just let it fly. So
does this start, because now I want to, out of each, let's call it buckets. So we have attitude at the base, the foundation, the work rate, and then the skills. The skills are physical, the work rate to a certain extent is physical, mental, then the attitude is mental and emotional even. With regard to attitude, is it like, is its impetus, is its genesis in self-talk? Because like in that situation, I'm sure you heard with your son how it's like, oh, I suck, I can't do this, I don't like golf. Does it start there, or is there somewhere else?
Well, I think that's usually where it does start, isn't it? Because really, at the end of the day, the value that we place on a performance comes from our perception of that performance. Right?
Yeah.
So, are we grading ourselves? Usually, it's graded on score, isn't it? If it's a round of golf, but there was no score. She was just trying to hit good golf shots. So, there's that. It's such a hard word, because so much relies on it.
Yeah.
It's called expectation. And it is the absolute Achilles heel of professional athletes, and not even athletes. We can talk about people in the business world, where when it comes down to expectation levels, that yes, you should expect, you should want to do well, you can have expectations, but they need to be built upon solid foundations. And these are conversations that I have with my amateur golfers. I mean, sometimes even my friends who will phone me and they start getting upset, or we play golf together. I'm like, what do you think? This game doesn't owe you anything. You're not a professional. You don't stand on the range, 3-4 times a week, if not every day, hitting golf balls. You go once a month, or maybe at best you go for half an hour before your club champs and expect to go out there and break a handicap. Like, this game doesn't owe you anything. You can't go out there and expect to perform at that level. But however, if you're an elite level athlete who's done the work and you've done the time and you've put in the effort and put in the energy, well, then maybe that expectation level can go up. But we've even seen it at that top level. When they go out there with this level of expectation, invariably, they do not perform to their capability. And I hazard to point out a situation, Brooks Koepka. Okay, recently, he had a chance at the Augusta National to win the green jacket. Obviously, he doesn't have one yet. And he went out there, and even he said it. He publicly said it. He said, I had made some mistakes that day. Going into that round, and in the round, I made errors. I made mistakes. And I like to call them errors, not mistakes. Like, everyone makes mistakes. Errors are avoidable. So clearly he found errors. And it was Amanda asked him, like, what are those things? And he said, well, I'm not going to divulge my secrets, but don't you worry. I've sat down and I've gone through it, and I couldn't sleep that Sunday night after Augusta, the final round. And I figured it out. I spent time with myself, and I realized what I did wrong. And I guarantee you that will not happen again. And invariably, I would put hang my hat on this, is that it was his level of expectation was one of those elements. I'm saying it was the only thing, but I'm sure expectation came into play there. Of that, I think there's no doubt.
And isn't it curious? Because I oftentimes say, and I'm a golf teacher deep down. With this podcast, I'm taking more the 36,000 foot view at the thing, kind of like you guys do. Want to be a champion, where I almost would say it's intellectually lazy to start blaming the golf swing, because not one of the things we heard from the inside about what Brooks was doing, it had nothing to do with his physical performance whatsoever.
No, nothing at all. In actual fact, you look at his physical performance, both from technical and his body. Like, we know when he's fit, he's one of the best golfers on the planet at present. So, his medical team and his trainer have done a great job of getting him back into that physical state where he can execute his golf swing. That is very repeatable. Yeah. But the thing that stopped him was, the 6 inches between his ears. And invariably, I'd say that was probably the golden nugget that changed between Augusta and Oak Hill. Was his attitude. Yeah.
So you've given advice on the attitude. Now, the peanut butter in the sandwich here on the 6 Duplo cube is work rate. Now, I sort of did this when I was, opening my performance up to you as my coach again in inverted commas, where I was like, I was doing my routine, but it was sort of autopilot. I wasn't really in it, because there's so many golfers. They're like, well, I know I got to line my shot up and I got to make a practice swing. They go through this stuff, but it's just empty. There's no real focus. There's no engagement physically or mentally, I should say, and emotionally. I mean, would you say that that's a pretty important part to successful work rate? Because look, just hitting balls is one thing, but truly practicing is another.
Yes, and I think we know that and we've seen that as coaches across the board. Practice doesn't make perfect, right? Deliberate practice is what we're after, and that level of engagement on every shot is essential. I know your mentor and a mentor of mine, Mr. Gary Player, always said that he never hit a shot without 100% intent, and so did a certain Jack Nicklaus too. So to get to that top level of the game, it's that diligent, deliberate, fully engaged level of practice that actually leads to change. Like we spoke about that growth mindset earlier. I have a belief, I engage in that action, and the level of engagement at which I have in that action whilst I'm engaging in it or undertaking it is obviously going to lead to faster growth, because the more engaged I am, the more I'm engaging my motor cortex, my focus. And we know, we talk about myelination, we lay down the myelin sheath that surrounds every nerve. It grows, it gets wider, it almost opens up to allow more information to pass through that neuron into that space. So everyone talks about muscle memory. It's not really muscle memory, that the motor pattern is in my brain. It's just how well my brain is able to access those muscles or that tissue to then fire in a certain sequence then to create the movement, right? So the more I do that movement pattern with an engaged focus, the deeper that myelination is going to be, the deeper that groove will be that path can fire through to make that movement pattern happen. So it doesn't happen in the muscle. It's obviously it's a neural thing, and the neurons go to the muscle, but it's a pattern that's learned in the brain.
It's the mind-body connection, huh?
100%. That's it right there. So part of that holistic view to this is essential. Now, we've got the mind, body, and the body swing connection, and there's no reason why the mind and the swing aren't interconnected either.
Okay, as it pertains to the skills, the top of the cube.
Yeah.
Yeah, one insight there as it pertains to skills, because you've helped us with attitude, you've helped us with the work rate, you've helped us to understand how to use this thing and basically become self-assess, have the skill to objectively self-assess as opposed to subjectively go, oh, I can't putt, so
Yes.
we've delved into this. So help us with the final, the top of the cube, the skills.
Yeah. Well, I mean, skills, and then that's task dependent. And I think that's one of the great things about this cube is that it basically pulls the attention away from the person and puts it into the task that you've just completed or the task that's coming up, whatever it might be.
Yeah.
And you can go, well, I'm going to play around at St. Andrews, right? So links golf, right? So what skill sets am I going to need in order to be able to perform well at St. Andrews?
Okay.
Okay.
Right.
And so you got to look at the task that I'm about to engage in and specifically break that down and go, okay, so these are the skills that are required for me to complete that task. Whether it's maybe I'm standing up in front of an audience at the PGA show and I'm doing a presentation, or I'm coming on the Mark podcast. Like what skills do I need in order to be able to execute in that moment and actually do that proficiently? So, an example, John Rahm, I had a nice conversation with Dave Phillips, his coach, and he was showing me, this was pre-Augusta National, the blueprint that they were following and what they were doing with these cards so to make his practice very purposeful and very deliberate, they were working on specific skills that he would need in order to win at Augusta National. Like standing on the first tee, he even said it in an interview, and they then put this on this card, and he had to hit 5 shots standing on the first tee at Augusta, wind, wherever the wind was, but you had to be on the left half of the fairway, because he said that. He said, I like being on the left half because I've got a better angle to get into the green. And that's what they would do. So he would then set out a task, 5 shots. At that, they would create a little fairway on the driving range wherever they were, and he had to hit 5 shots within that parameter. Obviously, they'd use their launch monitor that they had at hand to measure that, and you would have to hit that shot. So, when he stepped up on that first tee on Thursday morning, he'd hit that shot, 100 times with the same level of engagement and purpose that he now needed in order to do it in the bull ring, and he developed the skill that was necessary to stand up there and hit that shot. So this is the thing: is like golf. Nobody deserves anything in the game of golf, but John Rahm certainly deserved to win the Masters, because he'd done the work. He'd put in every single ounce of his being into winning that tournament. And it was so driven and so directed that he developed the skill set necessary to go out there and win at Augusta National. And he then duly went out there and did it. So, that's really what the Success Cube is about.
That is a sensational anecdote. And it speaks to the level of, Tracy always calls it being intentional. Tracy, my wife, she talks about living intentionally, about these guys and girls on the LPGA, how intentional they are. So now I want to wrap this conversation with you talking about intent when it comes to a club golfer, for argument's sake. So now I was gone for a lesson with Garth and Doug, not even Mark, because Mark's learning over here. And but they hook up with you. You make some advisements about what they should do physically and mentally, and Doug gives them a swing adjustment to make. And then they go to the range and then don't really practice, and they forget the stuff that you said in terms of stretching, and then they wonder why they're playing badly.
Sure. And the bottom line is, what are they going to blame?
You.
Yeah, exactly, but not imparting them with the skills necessary. So they're going to blame the skills. When actually, the skills wasn't the problem. It was the fact that you hadn't done the work, and primarily your attitude was poor, because that's why you weren't willing to go out there and engage in it.
Sweet, brother.
There you go. So, yeah, and that's the awesome thing, is we can always bring everything back down to those three levels. As simplistic as that is, it hits the nail on the head every time. And I'm working with golfers of all levels has shown me that. And I think the scope of the cube in and of itself is so far reaching, because it's not just specific to the game of golf. It's any task that I need to perform in life, whether I'm a school pupil in school, a college student, or I'm an elite level businessman.
Yeah.
In actual fact, the Success Cube was developed by a gentleman working in a global software development company called Red Hat, and that's where he found it. They were using the Lego 6 bricks concept, and he kind of changed it around and made the cube, and that's where it was originally, devised for. Was for him to work with his management teams.
So that's the perfect segue. There it is, folks. The YouTube viewers. It's Lego blocks, a cube of them, 6 of them, larger, like the Duplo, the kiddies ones. Big smiley face in the front, because if you do the other stuff around the back, well, you can have lots of smiles in the boardroom, on the golf course, in life. Tell folks like where they can get this. What's the future of this cool little?
Okay.
I don't know what to call it. Gadget, guide. Call it a guide.
Yeah, a guide, a tool. Yeah, I mean, so I think head over to the website. It's called futurerelevance.com. So that's future relevance with the VANCE. And check it out. There's all the information is there. I know the guys at Future Relevance have said they'd really like to do a little pilot program with some golfers. So they've kindly said that if the first 25 golfers to sign up, they can use the code golf 2023. So uppercase golf 2023. If they use that code, they'll get 50% off the membership for a year, and they'll get the one-on-one coaching, the guide, the drive, the playbook, the recipe cards, everything that we put together that can help to facilitate that process using the cube, and help them, guide them through their ability to change from a fixed mindset to a growth mindset, and hopefully improve their game of golf.
Okay, folks, if you're watching this, you would have seen me scribbling feverishly, because Garth over there has hit me with something I wasn't prepared with. So let me just recap. So for our first 20 folks from this podcast, or this
Correct.
to go to your website, futurerelevance.com, and sign up there using the promo code golf 2023, all uppercase, right? They to describe the deal again, I'm still somewhat
they'll get 50% off that membership for the year.
That's tremendous.
Okay.
Thank you.
And your pleasure, Mike.
All right, now if they want to follow you, where do they go?
For me, Instagram. My nickname is Smiley Milne for some reason. So just go to Smiley Milne and check it out on Insta or Twitter. That's where you can find me. Whilst you can find us at the academy, wannabeachampion.com. Right.
Smiley, thanks, pal. So good to see you.
Pleasure.
After my practice session with my daughter this afternoon, we're going to allow her to evaluate using this thing. So I appreciate you very much. Thanks for joining us.
Okay. Yeah, pleasure. Thanks for having me.